Hey y'all, we're backstage at the Grand Ole Opry with our guest Larry Paxton, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his career, how he got started. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right in. So I know you grew up playing music. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Well, my dad was a band director, so I played everything. Started out on violin when I was 7 or 8 years old, and then I played tuba. That was very cruel to do to a young man. I played tenor sax. The best thing was the stage band. They requisitioned a K string bass, and I took lessons from my dad. Gigged on weekends, and his bass player gave me some lessons one summer, and so I got to read all these jazz lines and play with the stage band, and that led to me doing gigs with Dad as well on guitar and bass. Played them both.
Now I know that when you got to college, there were a couple of interesting moments with college, making a transition into music more full time. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you remember all that.
That's the thing. We know a little bit about Larry.
Well, I was a tuba major, and it was a small college, so I played with a faculty quintet. So did a lot of concerts with them, and dressed in a tuxedo. But while I was in college, I was supporting myself playing in rock bands, horn bands, soul bands, whatever. Primarily on bass, and I also wrote the charts in the listening lab. I'd have my headphones on writing like Chicago charts or Temptation, whatever. Just that helped me in, like I'm doing a lot of arranging now, and that started way back then. So I was playing gigs I went to school in Youngstown, Ohio. I was gigging in Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, all around there. And what happened was, at some point, I decided that as I was sitting in with my tuxedo with a tuba in my lap, I thought, I really don't want to do this the rest of my life. I'm having more fun, and I was making more money. And my dad was bummed out because, I was also an education major. I didn't want to teach. I had students on Saturday. That's how I paid for some of my tuition. Well, I didn't like those little rats. Less than a semester to go, I literally just walked out. I just walked away, put down my tuba, and started gigging pretty much full time in the Pittsburgh area, Youngstown, and that's when I started recording. There's a little studio called Peppermint Productions, and they did a lot of the local regional acts, a lot of gospel stuff, a lot of jingles. All this time I was playing probably equal time on guitar and bass, just depending on what band I was in. Well, yeah, in 76, I was working in Pittsburgh and still doing sessions, playing guitar, playing bass. And a really good friend of mine moved to LA, and he was a bass player. And he came home for Christmas, and we were hanging out, and he said, man, you need to move to LA. He said, he was turning down work. He said, you can take the stuff I turned down. And so I sort of did a trial run. I slept on his floor or his couch or whatever. And sure enough, I took the gigs he didn't take. They were mostly club gigs, a few sessions. But back then, the club gigs paid a lot of money. I was making a great living doing that. And through that, one of the guys I worked with, his name's Harry Middlebrooks. He's great. He was an actor. He wrote one of the writers of Spooky, that cool Classics 4 song. And Harry introduced me to a guy named Jerry Fuller, who was a great producer, songwriter. And Jerry took me under his wing. I started doing his arranging, session arranging, played bass. He introduced me to, it just snowballed after I met, he got me a writing deal with CBS. So I was songwriting. I started doing more sessions. I really got my education quickly.
And Jerry worked with some pretty interesting people.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Gary Puckett and Union Gap. He wrote Travelin' Man for Rick Nelson. That was his first hit. And Bobby Goldsboro, that I can't. There's lots, you know, and so L.A. was. I made a lot of great connections, and I sort of figured out the craft of playing. One of my first sessions in L.A., I said that. I said, "Is that all right?" And the engineer took me aside. He said, "Look, kid, don't ever ask if it's okay, because someone will have to answer it, and they'll usually say no, you know, because it's like an open door." He said, "You either say that was great or shut up." So I've never asked, "Is that okay?" since then.
Because people tell you anyway, right? If they want you to do it again.
Yeah, but you don't give them the opportunity,
Right,
you know,
right.
like it empowers them too much, I
Right.
think, you know, is that okay? And they'll think, they'll go, oh, maybe it was okay. Then you think, well, what was I thinking? So anyway, did some movie dates, a lot of late night, they call it custom sessions, you know, cash things like in really big studios like LA is 24 hours a day, you know, just so when you're new in town, you take whatever comes in, and a lot of demos. People that I still work with, John Hobbs, Billy Joe Walker, Paul Lime, Steve Turner, all these guys. We were doing demo recordings, songwriter demos, and but with big people like Barry Mann, you know, like great writers. And again, it was the music on demos is sometimes better than records because you have a lot more freedom. So we were really being creative, and I would probably have stayed, except I was, you know, I missed being around my family during the holidays in Ohio, and I got so tired of the traffic. I mean, just get up in the morning and drive into the valley, and I was in Santa Monica, which is a great place. 15 minutes to get to work and 2 hours to get home. It just beat me up. So finally I told Fuller, Jerry, I said, Jerry, I got to get out of here, you know.